everybody. Welcome back to the City Rev Life Podcast. So good to have you join us. My name's Craig. With me is Pastor Robey. With me is Angelica. We are continuing our series on marriage, and we've been working our way through 1 Corinthians 13. I'm trying to think of a love song to intro. All I can think of is Rihanna songs now. I've gone through all the classics.
Craig is a huge Rihanna fan.
You know I'm a huge Rihanna fan. Calvin Harris, We Found Love in a Hopeless Place. That's the only one that comes to mind right now.
Well, I was just thinking that, when you think about 1 Corinthians 13, it defines what is love.
What is love?
What is
Hey, she did it though. She did it.
There it is.
There
it is.
There you go.
Thank you.
You guys have to do the head motion.
You have totally redeemed yourself. Okay. Did we do that song already? Did we do What is Love already?
No,
I don't
we
think so.
have not.
We did not. I didn't think
Because
so.
now all I can see is that.
Yeah.
But it's there. It's there. But we've been talking about love. We've been working our way through 1 Corinthians 13. We've been pulling out some of the attributes, qualities that the Bible speaks on and applying it to our marriage. And it's been helpful. It's been good to kind of walk through some of the, I would say, common but important issues that come up in marriage, right? It's just kind of like heart stuff. It's like the problems, like sin stuff. It's the problems with our heart. So, so where are we going today, Pastor Robey?
First, where we need to go is I just need to confirm, are you really a huge Rihanna fan? Like, you just embrace that?
I mean, as much as anyone is, yeah, man.
I mean,
She's a
there's
superstar.
I know, but there's some people that are like really big
Rihanna fans. All right, we'll talk about it later. I can show you my Spotify. It's all right.
I'm more concerned than when we began, but we'll just keep going. Okay,
He was
so
a student pastor.
that's true. All right. So anyway, 1 Corinthians 13, it gives a description of love, and it's very profound in its simplicity. And so we're applying this to marriage. So we're going to just take a look at verse 6 and look at these next two attributes. So Angelica, why don't you go ahead and read this next verse?
It does not rejoice at wrongdoings, but rejoices with the truth.
So very simple. It's a description of love. The idea here is it's interesting what these two are paired together. It doesn't rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices in the truth. So this word for wrongdoing is unrighteousness. So the word in Greek for righteousness is dikaios. This is dikaios, so it's adding the negative in front. And I belabor that to say it's saying it does not rejoice in unrighteousness, but rejoices in, and really kind of what you'd anticipate is that it says righteousness.
Yeah.
Like you'd think that would be the opposite of unrighteousness is righteousness, and especially the way the word is formed. But what's so interesting and instructive is the opposite here of unrighteousness is truth. Doesn't rejoice in unrighteousness, but rejoices in the truth. Why truth? I think this is so instructive, and man, especially for our generation and our culture, because for starters, we view truth in general often as subjectivist. We're subjective, so we're subjectivists. So we think about typically the way we operate is you have your truth, I have my truth, and I'm not going to mess with your truth. You don't mess with my truth. And
I want to live my truth.
I want to live my truth. And so what we have this idea of subjectivism. We have this idea that truth, where is truth? It's inside, and we all define it for ourselves. But the reality is none of us are really subjectivists.
Right.
We think we're subjectivists. We're all closet objectivists, which is the opposite, which acknowledges that truth is external. Because we also, at the same time in our culture, all uphold science. And we say, there's no pure subjectivists out there. There's no one that's like, yeah, maybe gravity, if you want to believe in gravity. Right. I don't believe in gravity. We all embrace gravity as an external truth outside that we embrace. We know that, like, if someone, we truly believe that if someone throws themselves off a building, it doesn't matter if they inside believe in gravity. As they're hurtling towards the concrete, the truth of that concrete is going to smack them in the face. Okay?
Right.
So that's pretty dark that you'd laugh at that, Angelica. I'm just
part of me is laughing because it's like it doesn't matter if that person does not believe in gravity.
Yeah.
They're going to get
Yes, they're going to get, I said smacked in the face instead of splattered, but you went with splattered. Okay. But we're not true subjectivists. I say that because when it comes to things like righteousness and unrighteousness, when it comes to morality, That's really when we're
Yeah.
selective subjectivists. We basically say, okay, we know science, gravity, the way the earth rotates and, the way matter is. Like, we know those things are fixed, external, objective truths. But then we say all the moral stuff is subjective.
Right.
You believe what you want to believe is good. I'll believe what I want to believe is good. I'll live how I want to live. You live how you want to live.
No one can fully tell me what is right and what is wrong.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we're inconsistent, illogical in how we handle truth. And what's so confrontive of this, it's the same God that invented gravity. And here's why we're tentative and objectivist. If there's truth outside of me, someone had to invent it. And so it's probably why we kind of pull back from objectivism a little bit, because it necessitates a creator. There has to be someone who invented it at some point. Anyway, another podcast for another day. The same God that invented gravity is the same God that invented right and wrong. It's the same God that defined what is truly right and wrong. And while there are guaranteed consequences for violating the truth of gravity, like the person that throws them, I'm not sure about gravity. It's maybe for you, but not for me. That's going to cause consequences, guaranteed in their life, because it's an external truth. There are guaranteed consequences to going against what the Creator said is right and wrong. So this comes back to love. The most loving thing to do is to stand with the truth. In the same way we know, if my friend is about to say, I defy gravity, and I'm going to that doesn't apply to me, the most loving thing for me to do would be to grab him and carry him off the top of the building. In the same way, if someone's like, if someone's got, and we know that, and again, we know this, we're just playing imagination, it's pretend. You know that if my friend is dealing with deep, deep addiction, we know the loving thing is not to enable that addiction.
Right.
And that's a moral issue, because there's consequences to that. We just don't carry that out logically and consistently, because we don't want to anchor morality to God's word. We would rather pick and choose. And so we're playing pretend with a subjective morality. The most loving thing to do is to stand consistently for God's truth, whether scientific, whether moral, whether historical, whatever God has communicated as his truth, is to consistently stand with that, and stand with that with those we love.
Yeah, I feel like that's something that is the way you present it, right? Which is to stand for truth, and truth being equal to reality.
Yeah.
Yes.
It seems very non-controversial for you to say that we need to stand on truth and stand in reality. So why would that be controversial in our marriages to not stand on truth?
Yes. So, man, there's so many ways we can apply that to friends, family members, coworkers, even our kids. There's a lot of ways to apply that, but we're applying this in marriage, and I think that it can apply to marriage as well. We need the skill, and this goes a little bit what we were talking in the last episode. We need to learn the skill. We have to get good at conflict in marriage. That's just not optional. We have to learn how to do that. We have to learn how to speak truth to one another with humility. I don't have the perfect view of truth.
Yeah.
I'm going to do my best to be faithful to my spouse, but I'm not perfect. I might be speaking something I think is true. So I need humility. I'm not the authority. I need humility. I need to be gentle. I need to be consistent. And I need to also be corrected. And I need to receive truth. And I need to receive it with gentleness and humility and grace. Like, we just have to learn this skill, because there are going to be times when we have a view of our spouse, and our spouse has a view of us that no one else does.
Yeah.
And we need that person to not tolerate wrongdoing, to not overlook it, to not celebrate it, but to speak truth and to stand with truth.
So do you think it's more of it feels like a betrayal when someone corrects us? this is the person I love. This is my husband, my wife, my spouse. This is the person that has, signed up and made a vow to love me. And then we just always, maybe it's just something that we just always view love as support. And so when someone corrects us or when someone challenges our view, we think, well, they're not supporting me and they're not loving me. Do you think that's maybe where it's coming from?
I think that's a really good point. And I think we in our culture, we don't know how we think of you either agree and adopt it or you shun them. Like, we don't know how to say, hey, I'm still going to be in relationship with you, even though we disagree on this. I'm still going to be in relationship with you. I'm still going to be present with you, even though I don't support this. We don't know how to have those two things together in a relationship. And so sometimes we religiously think like, hey, I disagree with what you're doing, so I'm never going to speak to you again. And the relationship's over. Like, we shun them. Like, that's not what the Bible's saying. We can have patience and grace and we can disagree and journey together because, again, maybe I'm wrong. Like, maybe like you do have the right view. Maybe I need to learn something through this. Like, if we're both coming in with humility and we're trying to get to it's basically like this, in all relationships, but especially in marriage, probably the best way to look at this is not my job is to declare and preach truth at you and get you more aligned to the truth. What if we instead, because that's just
There's probably a lot of preachers where that is their marriage.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's hard as a preacher, Like, I'd say like it probably, that's just so judgmental. It's so self-righteous. It's so spiritually prideful. Probably the best way to view it in marriage is let's journey together but let's both parties agree what we're after is God's truth, not my truth. I'm not trying to prove my tradition. I'm not trying to prove my preferences. I'm not trying to prove what I want to do. Let's both have the humility before God, and let's be willing to stretch each other and journey towards truth together.
It takes a lot of humility, though, because we can just tend to dig in our heels and say, well, this is what I believe. This is the right way. And then even when we're presented with, conflicting evidence or another opinion, it takes humility to admit, really that we're wrong. Yeah. It's just hard.
I love the intentionality of the words that they're using here. Unrighteousness, the opposite. They intentionally didn't use righteousness because I would think for righteousness, I think Pharisees and how they behaved and how they spoke their truth versus what Jesus did and how he approached love and how he communicated the truth. And so I love just the intentionality of the opposite of unrighteousness was truth.
Yeah, the Pharisees had a external righteousness, but it wasn't an internal righteousness that was working itself out externally. And so they had a very hollow self-righteousness. And you're exactly right in that this is not licensed to be self-righteous, spiritually prideful, arrogant. This is a place to be humble and to journey together. But let's work this out in a couple spaces because we're kind of staying theoretical.
Okay.
Again, this necessitates that we have space to do this. Okay. So parenting is a challenging one. Yep. Let's say, and this is, I wish I could say this was hypothetical. Let's say I was too short with the kids and I was irritable.
No, Pastor Robey.
That never happened.
I know. It's shocking, but there was the one time back in 2023 that unfortunately, yes, that happens. And I'm impatient. I'm short.
Sure.
What I want, as hard as it is to hear, because now then, if I hear that, hey, I think you're a little irritable with the kids, then now I feel guilty. And then what I need to do is go back and confess that to my kids. I want to model as an adult. They need to see that adults apologize too, or they will never apologize when they're adults, or if they follow my pattern. I want to model owning a mistake to my kids. So it's never fun to be irritable. It's never fun to find out that you've been irritable and short with your kids. So, but if my wife, if Rebecca doesn't speak the truth to me, then I'm going to stay locked in my flaws as a dad. And I don't want that. I really don't. And so it's hard to hear that truth. And it's hard to hear that, but I need her to speak the truth into my life. And I need to work to make it as safe of a place for her to do that as possible.
Right, because it can be hard to share that too, right? Because you're like, well,
Yeah.
now it might be an argument, or it might make them mad, and that can be difficult as well.
Yes, and if we punish people every time they try to speak truth in our lives, then we will cocoon ourselves, and we are locking ourselves in our flaws and not growing. And so what we need to do is we need to create a safe place for people around us. And I would argue in every setting, I need my kids to be able to say, hey, Dad, that hurt my feelings. I want it to be safe for them. I want it to be safe for my coworkers. I want it to be safe for my friends, my neighbors. Like I want to create, but especially of all places, I want to make it safe in my marriage to speak truth, because my spouse has the closest, you said in a previous episode, front row seat to my life. Right. And it's a little bit challenging in parenting because because we also want to have kind of a united front with our kids. And so like at the same time, like we don't want to be like disagreeing and fighting like in front of them, but like maybe pulling it aside and kind of diffusing the situation.
Dad's going crazy, but we're a team.
Yeah. Disregard everything that your mother just said.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't do that. Yeah. So like we want to be a team, but we do need to speak the truth to one another and stand on the truth and do it humbly, because again, hey, I could be wrong, but maybe here's something to think about. Like we need to, not being authoritative, not being pharisaical, not being self-righteous. A great way to say is, hey, we both know that sometimes I'm irritable. And so I appreciate it when you bring it to my attention. I want to bring it to your attention.
I think it's like something too where you just think of strengths or even like gifting or just the way that God made us, right? It is what a blessing that could be if you look at it on the positive side, right? Yeah. We're all married to people who are different from us and they have different strengths. And so if we can be open and humble about our weaknesses and the times where we let people down, and maybe it's a strength of them,
right?
And then that's not something they deal with. Instead of being defensive, we say, okay, well, how can I be more like that? How can I grow in that area? Yep. Then you think of the benefit it has for your kids, right? Yeah. They've got two better parents now because they're actually working together. Yes. They're actually being humble. They're actually learning from one another. Yeah. And it helps them grow, right? And so it helps the family.
And probably that same flaw that I have as a dad will show up as a husband. Yes. So, and in other categories as well. And so, yes, we want to be able to do that. And I think the good news is, the more we learn to do this well, and we take this in stride, the easier it is. Yeah. And it becomes it becomes more of a reflex where it's like, I've had times where I've pulled Rebecca aside later and said, "Hey, was that a little too much with the kids? Was I just too irritable?" And then she speaks the truth to me. And so we want that kind of truth in our lives, and we want to be able to share that. Sometimes we don't want to share it because we don't want to start a fight. Sometimes we don't want to share it because we don't want to hurt their feelings. Sometimes we are mistakenly think it's more loving to just always lift up and encourage. No, we do need to speak the truth to one another.
Mm-hmm. I think there's a way we can do those things, right? We can speak the truth, but like you said, and do it in love. And so even though there may be more difficult conversations or they're corrective in nature, like I think we can still encourage, And the other part I think about it too is, and I think it's such a good point you bring up, is we need to create space for one another, because like any relationship, like if all you're getting is correction, it's just going to wear you down. Yeah. Even as for the most humble person, the most receptive person, that's still just going to wear them down. And so finding those times where you can have space together, still have fun together, still enjoy one another, and even finding times even intentionally is a challenge for me to be like, okay, well, where are times I can set aside intentionally just to build up my wife, right? Encourage her and for us to encourage one another. And if you have enough of that, right, it's kind of like you're talking about like filling the tank, right? If you have enough of that, that makes it easier to have those conversations as well.
I think that's right on. I think that's great. And I think the more we do this and the more we do this well, the easier it gets. Yeah. And I think here's one practical thing is, no matter where you're at in marriage, one practical thing on this is even if you're not sure you're ready to start speaking the truth, or maybe you feel like it's hard to speak the truth because your spouse is defensive, and we all get defensive, but maybe that is not a skill that's forged in your marriage really well. Here's one thing you can do is start asking for the truth in your life. And you can start slowly changing that culture by saying things like, hey, and be ready. If you're asking for it, be ready. Don't be defensive. But just start saying, hey, do you think I was, in our example, hey, was I too irritable with the kids? Or, hey, did that hurt your feelings last week? Or, hey, did you feel like I was like that to our friend? Or, hey, do you think this is okay? Can you speak in? When you invite the truth in and then receive it, and you handle that well, you're starting to change. You're starting to change the culture, and then it starts to get into your rhythm, and you're starting to prepare your heart. And if you can do that while also start encouraging and filling the tank.
Yeah.
And so then if just it's hard to change. You can't change the whole dynamic in your marriage all by yourself, but you can do your part. And if you're seeking the truth and starting to set that culture and responding well and inviting that in and creating a safe space for people in your life to speak the truth, and then you can also start encouraging and filling the tank of your spouse. Just that, not that with Barb at the end, just that, just start building them up, just build them up, encourage, they need encouragement. That can go a long way to start allowing this truth to God's truth to reign in our marriages.
I like that. It's kind of looking internally, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like that whole idea of seeing the plank in your brother's eye, plank in another's eye, and then, or seeing the speck in another's eye, and then not seeing the plank in your own, right? That idea of we've got a lot that we need to work on, and so we can model that, and we can model that in humility, and that can really change a marriage. That can be a way to lead through action, right?
Yes.
Not just by saying it. So I like that a lot.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for joining us this week for the City Rev Life Podcast. Hope this was helpful for you. Make sure to like, subscribe, share it with a friend, and we'll see you next time on the podcast.
Thank you so much for listening to the City Rev Life Podcast. Feel free to subscribe and leave a rate and review. We love it when you share it with your friends on social media, so don't forget to tag us at cityrev.church. If you're interested in more resources, download our City Rev Church app and follow us on social media. Have a great day.